Mr. Bender,
Here.
Mr. Groby, Mr. Canulet, Mr. Belisario, Ms. O'Brien, Mr. Stefanczyk, Mr. Artigue, Mr. Smith. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, council members have a request to open up the items off the floor so that we may hear presentations on items 1, 2, 3, and 4. Do I have a motion? So moved. Motion by Mr. Gould, second by Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Thank you. Madam Parish President. Sure.
It is certainly my honor tonight to read a proclamation for Mr. James Garner. Whereas James Garner is a St. Tammany Parish resident who was traveling with his family on Louisiana Highway 21 on the night of January 12, 2013. And whereas Mr. Garner witnessed a car swerve into the Boga Chitto River and made the decision to offer assistance. And whereas, finding Mary Woodward and her 3 children in distress, Mr. Garner followed his instincts and went into the river to help rescue the family. And whereas, due to his heroic action, the whole family survived. And whereas, Mr. Garner showed great courage in risking his own life to save the lives of the Woodward family. Now, therefore, I, Patricia Brister, as Parish President of St. Tammany, do hereby recognize the heroic act of James Garner and ask all citizens of St. Tammany Parish to thank him for his bravery, and may his actions serve as a model to all of us on how to treat our fellow man. Thank you very much. Is this your family? Come on over. There you go. Help hold. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. The second presentation, if I may go forward, Mr. Chairman, is presentation regarding the participation of residents and elected officials in 2 programs that I would like to talk about. The first is the Reach Out and Read program. Reach Out and Read promotes early literacy and school readiness to young children and their families through thousands of pediatricians in all 50 states. Each year, medical providers at the nearly 5,000 Reach Out and Read program sites nationwide distribute 6.5 million books to children and invaluable literacy advice to parents. In Louisiana alone, there are 36,181 children served annually. St. Tammany Parish School Board recently partnered with Slidell Memorial Hospital to launch the program in St. Tammany Parish this January. The second program is called STARE, Start the Adventure in Reading. For the last 27 years, STARE has provided literacy tutoring to more than 6,000 public school second graders in Orleans, Jefferson, and Plaquemines Parish, and is now expanding to the North Shore. STARE recruits and trains community volunteers who provide individualized, one-on-one tutoring for the entire school year to improve the students' reading and language skills. Recommended by their teachers, STARE students are 7 to 9-year-old children who are at risk. These children are in danger of failing and just need extra help to succeed, and STARE provides that help. These are only 2 programs that are indicative of the generosity of the time that our citizens give to make this the greatest parish of all. And thank you for letting me read those. And on the third item, we have gone through our first year together, Councilman, and I think we've done pretty well. We've had a few surprises, but I think we got a lot done, and I thank you very much for all the help that you all have given me, and I think we've worked well together. We have a little video that we want to give you. It's what we plan for the next year. You know, you can never stop. You always have to look forward. And after this first year, we don't want to slow down. We want to make sure we continue all the great things that we've been able to accomplish together. So if you will, just give us the opportunity. We'd like to show you this. And also, I'd like to thank Ronnie Simpson and his staff for putting this together. It was all done in-house. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Madam President.
We should never forget where we've come from, but we shouldn't let the past confine what we want to be. We're no longer the bedroom for someone else's corporate boardroom. The farms of our past are the fertile ground for corporations and small businesses. We're not just pine trees. We aren't just the place at the end of a long bridge. We've come far and have dealt with growth, traffic, storms, and hundreds of other challenges. The parish has attracted businesses, recruited corporations, and watched businesses grow. Houses and their subdivisions have sprouted up all over the parish, but many of us still think of ourselves as a little brother to the South Shore. That mentality ends here. We must believe that this parish is capable of being a power in and of itself. The parish's potential is determined by us living up to our potential. For St. Tammany to be better, we have to be better. We have to be focused on the things that will push us to that potential. The second-year agenda will be where we put St. Tammany first. We'll be faced with a shrinking state budget in public health and behavioral health care. Our focus will be to fill that gap to make sure our citizens get first-class care. A new beginning for economic development has begun. We have all the geographic advantages to be competitive, but our actions also affect whether businesses think of St. Tammany first. The innovative ways in which we deal with the challenges of a growing stress on our infrastructure and drainage will be looked upon as the future standard. Others will look to St. Tammany first. The canvas is ready for us to further our reputation for a great quality of life. Creating an arts district will give our creative community a home, a studio, and a stage. Our greatest asset is our people, and making the Learning Center a reality will further our ability of having an educated workforce. To continue to put education in St. Tammany first, we must have this campus. The innovative solution of Southeast Louisiana Hospital Campus continuing operations will be a model for others. This isn't the end of a victory lap. It's the warm-up to a marathon effort with St. Tammany first. Saving the taxpayers' dollars with a mitigation bank is compliance by creativity. We work hard and we play hard. Having a parks and sports facilities focus will only add and showcase what we have to offer families. St. Tammany First in Recreation. St. Tammany first in everything we do. Putting St. Tammany first in all our decisions. If we do it well, we do it for the right reasons. It's government that works. It's St. Tammany first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for letting us show that and just highlighting a few things we want to go forward with. But I can't tell you how proud I am for our staff that has put this together, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have the annual report by the Parish President's Veterans and Military Advisory Council.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thanks for having us here today. Just for edification of the people in the audience, the parish president and the council had the foresight last year to create a Veterans and Military Affairs Veterans Council, and I'm the vice chairperson for it, and my name's Pat Phillips. And what we're here today to do is just give them a quick update on what we've accomplished in a couple of months we've been in existence. First, we've worked to establish the parish as, they created the Veterans Cemetery. Now, the council wasn't formed at that time. Many of the people on the board, though, were pretty instrumental in helping to create or obtain the Veterans Cemetery. It's now going to be out here on Highway 12 down near Slidell. We've gone out and we've fostered communication between all the veterans and veterans organizations. We're trying to be like the hub, and all the spokes come to us with the VFW, the Legion, and other organizations like that. We worked to provide transportation for the disabled veterans, getting them back and forth to the different clinics, and that's a work in progress. We've advised other veterans organizations of our meetings, trying to get them in there and pass on to us, you know, ideas that they want to try to achieve and projects that we need to help them with. We've created and adopted the bylaws that govern the St. Tammany Parish Military Veterans and Military Affairs Council. We have adopted the following committees. We have a Bylaws Committee, Finance Economic Development Committee, Public Awareness and Veterans Education Committee, and Veterans Stand-On Committee and Executive Committee. Now, I think one of the major projects we have is going to be something that's going to be very helpful is John Wells, with the assistance of Trilby LaFont. She sort of is our link to the council through her government, was it the parish government committee, or I'm not quite sure the term for that, but intergovernmental committee, okay, council committee member. But at any rate, she's been working with John Wells and I guess it's Judge Zaney. Now, I don't know all the specifics of it, but a lot of the veterans coming back from overseas or that are getting discharged and that they're having issues, and instead of just letting them go to jail or whatever, we're trying to reach out and support them in whatever way we can. And they're coming up with some creative ways of doing that. And that also is a work in progress. And John Wells has also been working with Loyola College. What they're trying to do is get some of the law students engaged in helping the veterans. It'd be like practical experience for them at no cost to us. So it'd be like free help. And we could use their expertise and tap into the schools in their legal departments. And that, again, is a work in progress. We've been in contact with Trey Faust of the public school system, and hoping to go through him to work with the different principals of the schools, so we can reach out to the students and maybe give some classes or whatever on such things as citizenship responsibilities, flag etiquette, and patriotism. And that's about all I have to report at this time.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from council members? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate it. Okay. Going back to the first page of our agenda, let me first say that we have two dignitaries in the audience, two elected officials in the audience from two of our sister parishes. And I'll just give everybody a little bit of information on them since they're not from St. Tammany Parish. First, we have Judge Ernie Drake, Jr. And Judge, if you'd like to stand, thank you. Appreciate you coming here tonight. Judge Drake is a graduate of Southeast Louisiana University, a law degree from Tulane University Law School, has practiced 24 years in different courts, and has 14 years on the bench for Tangipahoa, Livingston, and St. Helena parishes. And Judge, we welcome you here tonight. Thank you for coming. Yes, sir. And then we also have from Denham Springs, Louisiana, the current city marshal of Denham Springs, Mr. Jerry Denton, Jr. Mr. Denton, welcome. And Mr. Denton's been a practicing attorney for 25 years, is a former assistant attorney general, former prosecutor with East Baton Rouge Parish, and we thank you for coming to our meeting tonight. Welcome. Okay, one other last thing. I was handed this from the parish president. I have no problem recognizing this gentleman, Mr. Ralph Minitry. Mr. Minitry wants to do a quick announcement from the Covington Chamber regarding a veterans event. So, Mr. Minitry, we welcome you.
Thank you, Mr. Bender, and members of the council. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm here this evening to remind you, if you're not aware of it, that the city of Covington is celebrating their 200th anniversary this year. And I am a member of the Covington Bicentennial Committee. And we are planning what we feel is a wonderful tribute to our veterans. On Memorial Day, that's May 27th, we're having a reception at the Greater Covington Center to honor our veterans and their families for their service and dedication to our country, to our state, to this parish, and particularly to the city of Covington. We do appreciate their service, and we hope that they will be with us on that day, the 27th of May. I ask you to be in attendance if you would like to join us also. We look for a very wonderful reception, and we hope that many of you will be there. That is going to be on Memorial Day, immediately after the service that's conducted at the Justice Center in Covington, and the Greater Covington Center is just a couple of blocks down Jefferson Avenue. So we hope that we have a good turnout, and I thank you for the opportunity to make you aware of what we're doing in the city of Covington to celebrate, one of the things we're doing to celebrate our bicentennial. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Minitry. Okay, members of the council, before we move to the consent calendar, one last item, and certainly if I would have been aware of this prior to Councilman Belisario saying the prayer, we certainly would have made mention of it. But we need to also remember in our prayers, I was made aware that our parish president's sister has a severe form of cancer and is near death. And so we ask our Lord to look after Ms. Brister's sister, Ms. Brister, and their family. And I guess we should also thank the Lord for her sister's time here on earth. So you have our prayers and sympathy, Madam President. Okay, moving to the consent calendar, let me give council members the items that have been pulled. Under ordinances for introduction, pull number 2, ordinance calendar number 4947. Also, under ordinances for introduction, item 15, ordinance calendar number 4960. Under resolutions, pull item 1, resolution CS number C-3626. Item 2, resolution CS number C-3639. And item 3, resolution CS number C-3640. and that's the extent of pulled items. Let me just ask in globo, do any other council members have any items they wish to pull? Okay, seeing none, I need a motion. Motion by Mr. Stefanczyk to approve the consent calendar as amended, second by Mr. Belisario. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Thank you. Under ordinances for introduction, first, item 2, ordinance calendar number 4947, ordinance amending the official zoning map of St. Tammany Parish to reclassify 19.748 acres from HC3 to I1, Ward 9, District 14. Mr. Smith.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we would like to pull this and offer to postpone it for 30 days
Okay.
due to some concerns we have with some intense zoning impacts that we need to take a closer look at.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Smith to postpone for 30 days, seconded by Mr. Tanner. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Thank you. Next item is item 15, under ordinances for introduction, and that is ordinance calendar number 4960, ordinance authorizing the sale of sales tax refunding bonds, Series 2013 of Sales Tax District Number 3. This is sponsored by Mr. Belisario, but go to Mr. Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. And is Mr. Akers here?
No, sir, he's not. He is in Shreveport, I believe, but his partner, Alan Offner with Foley and Udell.
Okay.
is here.
Can we get that full name, Alan?
Alan Offner, OFF-NER.
Okay, well, welcome.
And Mr. Marcus Lambert is here as well. He is the underwriter, the banker with Cruz and Associates. It was his firm that originally identified this refunding opportunity for the parish.
Okay, well, Marcus, thank you for your work in identifying this and working with Mr. Ryan and Mr. Offner and Mr. Akers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ryan, anything else?
No, sir, that was it. Just, this is the adoption of the, the introduction of the ordinance that we discussed at the Agenda Review Committee meeting.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion to introduce? Motion by Mr. Falconer, seconded by Mr. Sharp, and that's all we need. Okay, under resolutions, we pulled item 1, resolution CS number C-3626, resolution limiting the parish council from referring rezoning cases to the zoning commission. Mr. Belisario.
I'd like to make a motion to remove Resolution CS number C-3626.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Belisario, seconded by Mr. Stefanczyk. Mr. Gould.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I want to know what plans are with regards to taking a look at this issue as far as who's going to be qualified to get by without having to pay the fees, and what parameters. I mean, that's what this whole resolution was about, is that, you know, $17,000 last year, we're continuing to do it this year. At some point, we need to establish parameters that are reasonable.
Okay. So, Mr. Gould, if I could, are you recommending perhaps, and I don't mean a committee, but perhaps a couple of council members, a member of the administration or whatever, to talk this over and make a recommendation?
Yeah, I think we need to do something, because this is just going to continue. And last year it was 17,000. This year it could be another 17, could be 20. At some point, we need to put some kind of restrictions on this.
Okay, so.
And by the way, it has nothing to do about whether a councilman has the right to put a motion on the floor to change a zoning or anything like that. It's about the finances. Who pays, who doesn't pay.
Right. Madam President, you're fine with us meeting on this issue? Okay.
Jerry?
So, excuse me one second, Mr. Hernandez.
That's
Yeah.
part of what I want to be able to do, is to come up with logical reasons for this, look at the finance, because I brought it up many months ago, okay, that because of the impact on the budget, we were doing that through the budget review, if you go back to the fall of 2012. So
Okay.
that still has to be addressed. And what I want to do is after Mardi Gras, to start contacting some of the council members and people from the public, and with Sydney to put something together.
All right, so Mr. Bellicera, you and Mr. Gould willing to represent the council. Mr. Tanner, you'd like to be involved. And then if Mr. Falconer or myself, Mr. Smith would like to be involved, that's fine. I mean, and Mr. Sharp, what I'd like is Gene as chairman of the Finance Committee, let's just make sure we whatever council members don't want to be involved, that we just make everyone aware of where things are headed before we vote on it.
That's for sure.
Okay, Mr. Stefanczyk?
Yeah, I just want to remind the fellow councilman, as Mr. Gould said, this doesn't take away the capability to change the zoning. And I
Right.
think that's what we would end up doing if you pass this kind of a thing without some ability for the problems that we have encountered in districts, especially where we've taken on a whole new set of, I've about doubled the size of my district and got a bunch of areas that I've got a lot of problems with, and we're trying to straighten out. And the alternative to what we do today with this is send it back to the planning commission, or
Right.
the zoning commission, I'm sorry, the zoning commission. What we will end up doing, just so you know, unless we give some really good reasons and restrictions to it, is that we'll put a motion on the floor to change the zoning, and it won't go back to zoning. Doesn't have to go back to zoning. And I would prefer that zoning take a look of anything that we have to do. So that's what I'm looking at least I think that's the way we would go today. Now, I believe legal counsel could advise on that, but I think that that's what we'd end up doing. And I'd rather that anything that happens goes back through the zoning commission. So when we come up with something on this, and I'm willing to work with them too, when we come up
Yeah.
with something on this, I want some capabilities for some of us that inherited areas that we thought in the old areas we were in pretty good shape, the new areas were not. And,
Okay.
and so we need to have some relief to be able to do something for people who have who have just gotten basically a raw deal in the process.
Right.
And I don't think they should have to pay to have their land rezoned, especially if we did it during comprehensive rezoning, change their land without telling them. I realize that we've advertised all through the papers and the news media and radio and TV that we were going to do comprehensive rezoning. That doesn't mean that everybody understood what that meant.
Right.
And that they were aware that it affected them. And I could understand people with commercial properties a little more than I could understand somebody whose house got zoned to commercial, without them knowing about it.
Right.
And then when they got ready to build on it, they couldn't build because it was now commercial. Those are the kind of things that I think we need to make exceptions for and look at. So,
Good points, thank you, Mr. Stefanczyk. And before I get to you, Mr. Hernandez, I would note, I think most of the people that raised their hand and nodded to me about being involved are members of the Finance Committee, but certainly any other council members that want to get involved with this, we'll let Mr. Bellisario, Mr. Gould, and the others that have expressed an interest meet with Mr. Fontenot. I'm just checking to make sure that you were listening. I saw the smile on your face, Sidney. Okay? What did I just say? Okay, all right. Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah,
Are you sure?
yeah. You even got Mr. Hernandez laughing, man. Mr. Hernandez, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Carlo Hernandez. I have commented on this matter in the past. I have stated that during the year 2012, the Parish Council adopted motions referring to the Zoning Commission for recommendation a number of rezoning requests. I have estimated the fees waived at $17,475 for the year 2012. I decided to compare the year 2011 with the year 2012, realizing that there were 5 different council members in place during 2011, that now the 2011 Parish Council adopted motions for rezoning requests costing $28,600. What is interesting is that none of the motions adopted by the Parish Council directs the Zoning Commission staff to waive these fees, the processing fees, advertising fees, etc. I believe these motions must direct the Zoning Commission staff to waive these fees, and an ordinance introduced and adopted by the Parish Council waiving these fees. Otherwise, the Zoning Commission staff is obligated to collect these fees as stated in Section 2-009, Parish Fees and Service Charges. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else from the public? Council members? Okay, so did I take a motion on this yet to remove? And we voted on it? Okay, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Thank you. Item 2 is Resolution CS number C-3639, resolution approving the holding of an election in Fire Protection District number 2 to authorize the renewal of a special tax herein. Mr. Falconer is the sponsor of this. I have a note to, Mr. Falconer, I'll recognize you, sir.
Yeah, I was just going to make the motion that we approve it, but offer Mr. Offner and Mr. Ryan an opportunity to comment.
Okay, so I have a motion from Mr. Falconer to approve, seconded by Mr. Gould, Mr. Offner, Mr. Ryan.
Yes, sir. This is a resolution which allows the fire district to extend their present tax for an additional 10 years. They want to do this in order to have the capacity to go forward with a capital improvement project, both for fire stations and fire trucks, and allow them a longer period to pay that off, thus allowing them to keep the money they need for operation and maintenance. And that's basically all it does. It extends the tax for an additional 10 years to the year 2029. Right. Technically, it's a renewal.
I have no problem with it, Mr. Chairman. They're not extending the term of the tax, they're simply renewing it early, which is.
Renewing it early.
And there were
Right.
several council members that called me before the Agenda Review Committee meeting that wanted clarification on that. It's not an extension of the number of years of the term of the tax.
Right.
The term is the 20 years, Alan?
The present tax expires 2019.
Right.
This will allow the tax to be levied from 2020 to 2029.
Okay, so they want to do an early election on this,
They're renewing it early, yes, sir.
and it would require a majority vote of the people
Yes,
in
sir.
that district.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate the information. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Thank you. Item 3 is Resolution CS number C-3640, resolution approving the holding of an election in Recreation District number 2 to authorize the levy of a special tax therein. Mr. Tanner.
I move to remove this item from the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Tanner to remove. Mr. Thompson seconds it. Any questions? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay. Moving on to appeals. Item 1 is Rick Wilkie appealing the zoning commission approval on January 2nd, 2013 to rezone 19.20 acres located east of Oshner Boulevard Extension, west of Normandy Oaks subdivision, from A4A single-family residential to PBC1 Planned Business Center District, 15.25 acres, and A7 Multiple Family Residential District, 3.95 acres, Ward 1, District 1. Mr. Dean.
Mr. Chairman, we've received an email from Mr. Wilkie suggesting that we withdraw it. So having said that, I'd like to make a motion to concur with the zoning approval.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Dean to concur, seconded by Mr. Gould. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
And Mr. Dean, I need a motion on the introduction of an ordinance. Motion by Mr. Dean, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Thank you. Ordinances for adoption. Item 1 is ordinance calendar number 4914AA, ordinance establishing a no parking zone on a portion of Dove Park Road, 4-D-001, Ward 4, District 5. Mr. Gould. Motion by Mr. Gould, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Thank you. Item 2 is ordinance calendar number 4916, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 15.55 acres to a PUD PUD, Ward 3, District 5. Mr. Gould. Motion by Mr. Gould, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Item 3 is ordinance calendar number 4917, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 15.55 acres from NC4, NC1, and A7 to A4A, Ward 3, District 5. Mr. Gould. Motion by Mr. Gould, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Item 4 is ordinance calendar number 4928, ordinance accepting finalized subdivisions into the road and drainage inventories, Ward 3, District 5. Mr. Gould. Motion by Mr. Gould, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Other than needing your colleagues to vote, Mr. Gould, I was just going to say, some of us could leave. Now we have District 11 now. Ordinance calendar number 4934, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 22,000 square feet from HC2 to A4A, Ward 8, District 11. Mr. Stefanczyk.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is one of them that I referred back to the zoning commission because it was a house that was rezoned commercial, and we're trying to get it back to being a house so that I can build some extra stuff on it. So,
Okay.
yes, I move to approve this one.
Motion by Mr. Stefanczyk, seconded by Mr. Ortiz. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Item 6 is ordinance calendar number 4935, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 2.64 acres from A4A to HC2, Ward 3, District 2. Mr. Sharp. Motion by Mr. Sharp, seconded by, I think that was Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Thank you. Item 7 is ordinance calendar number 4936, ordinance to amend the St. Tammany Parish Unified Development Code relative to side yard setbacks. Mr. Gould.
Yeah, I have a motion to amend, I voted on it at the agenda review, recommendation, amendment made.
Okay.
Sorry. The recommendation, what the amendment does is gets it consistent, this ordinance consistent with what we did with the lots of record, but it allows for the Department of Engineering to provide, to agree to 5-foot setbacks in subdivisions that have a drainage plan. If you remember, we had problems with the infill lots in subdivisions such as, say, Tammany Hills, Alexisville. They were flooding each other out, and that's how we ended up going to the 7.5-foot setback. But then, even with that, there were some properties in Tammany Hills, for example, that were being developed comprehensively by a developer. And they were able to submit their drainage plans. In those circumstances, we allowed them to move forward with the 5-foot side setbacks.
Okay. So, Mr. Gould, the note I have here is that first we want to vote on the amendment, and then you're going to move to adopt as amended, correct?
Yes, sir. And by the
Okay.
way, I got an email from the Home Builders Association that they were in concurrence with this.
Okay, great. All right, so motion by Mr. Gould to amend as stated, seconded by Mr. Tanner. Please vote on the amendment.
Mr. Dean? Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Mr. Gould, need a motion to adopt as amended.
Move to adopt.
As amended, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Thank you. Item 8 is ordinance calendar number 4937, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 28,000 square feet from NC4 to MD1, Ward 3, District 2. Mr. Sharp. Motion by Mr. Sharp, seconded by Mr. Tanner. Mr. Gould, you have a question?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I didn't.
No problem. Any discussion? All right, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Number 9 is ordinance calendar number 4938, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 10,340 square feet from CD1 to HC1, Ward 9, District 13. Mr. Ortiz.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Ortiz, seconded by Mr. Smith. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Item 10 is ordinance calendar number 4939, ordinance to extend for 6 months the moratorium within a portion of voting precinct 914, Ward 8, District 14. Mr. Smith.
I move to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Ortiz. Any discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Thompson? Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Thank you. Number 11 is ordinance calendar number 4940, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 3.48 acres from A1 to A2, Ward 3, District 2. Mr. Sharp. Motion by Mr. Sharp, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Number 12 is ordinance calendar number 4941, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 1.5 acres from NC4 to A2, Ward 1, District 4. Mr. Falconer.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt.
Motion by Mr. Falconer to adopt, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Item 13 is ordinance calendar number 4942, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 202.43 acres from A2 to A2 and MHO, Ward 6, District 11. Mr. Stefanczyk.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Stefanczyk, seconded by Mr. Ortiz. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Item 14 is ordinance calendar number 4943, ordinance to amend the 2013 operating budget, amendment number 1.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Belisario, seconded by Mr. Stefanczyk. Any questions or discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Item 15 is ordinance calendar number 4944, ordinance to ratify or amend or rescind ordinance CS number 12-2845, amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify, and it should read 0.97 acres, not 0.197 acres, from A2 to NC2, Ward 4, District 7. Mr. Grovey.
Motion to ratify.
Motion by Mr. Grovey to ratify, seconded by Mr. Belisario. Any discussion by council members? Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you. Caller Hernandez. As I discussed with you at the committee meeting, Agenda Review Committee meeting, the unusual language here is because of what transpired back in October of last year regarding when I suggested to the council that they may want to review whether the right-of-way needed for the proposed roadway between 1088 and US 190 would involve this piece of property. I believe it does. And apparently, the ordinance was, instead of postponing, it was adopted. So that's why this is coming back up again now.
Okay.
So I'm told that that the property is not needed for this proposed roadway. Let's just say we'll see. We'll see. I hope the proposed roadway takes place very soon. I believe the right-of-way will be needed, which will include this property. If it's not, it's inches away. But I believe part of this right-of-way will be needed for this property here. In any case, I discussed this with Mr. Groby. He and I obviously disagree on the need for additional commercial property along in this area. And, you know, there's sufficient commercial property right now in the area that's not developed. The property around this area, on north of it, east, south, is all residential. The interesting thing is that the rest of the property needed for the right-of-way is all residential or public facilities. So I think with the right-of-way I saw, possibly one house will be taken for the proposed right-of-way. So with the exception of this property, if you do make it commercial now, this will be the one commercial property that will be needed, I think, for the right-of-way. The rest will be residential and public facilities. And it's a right-of-way, I believe, that is vitally needed for this area, and certainly for the people traveling Pelican Park area to 1088, the interchange, the school that's on 1088, and schools along Soul 1088. And you know, many of you know, there are a number of schools in the area. So, and traffic is horrendous in the area, and this roadway, proposed roadway, is needed. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Hernandez. Any comments from the council discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Item 16 is ordinance calendar number 4945, ordinance to extend for an additional 6 months the moratorium on multifamily structures within unincorporated areas of Council District 12, which is mine. Mr. Gould, thank you for the motion. Seconded by Mr. Belisario. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Item 17 is ordinance calendar number 4946, ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 1.057 acres from A2 to NC2 and NC2 to HC1, Ward 9, District 11. Mr. Stefanczyk.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Stefanczyk, seconded by Mr. Smith. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
All right, nominations. Item 1 is appoint one individual to the Board of Commissioners of St. Tammany Recreation District Number 16, which are Districts 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Mr. Smith.
Move to table.
Motion by Mr. Smith to table, seconded by Mr. Gould. Mr. Belisario, do you have a question? Okay. Mr. Stefanczyk, did you have a question? No, okay. All right, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Item 2 under nominations, resolution to appoint John Zollinger to replace Jason Cobb, who has resigned. He actually moved out of the area to the, appoint to the St. Tammany Parish Development District. This is a parish-wide appointment. Mr. Falconer.
Yeah, I'd like to move on the appointment.
Motion by Mr. Falconer to move on the nomination
Right, the
of Mr. Cobb, seconded by Mr. Belisario. Mr. Smith, do you have a question?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, so we're going to vote on the nomination, okay? Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. I apologize. I did need to ask, and I
Yeah, let's-
apologize.
If there are no other nominations,
That-
then I
that's-
make a motion that we suspend the rules and,
Right, that,
and approve. Yeah.
Mr. Falconer, my apologies. I meant to point that out. Thank you, Mr. Gould. Okay, so are there any other nominations? None. Okay, so Mr. Falconer makes a motion to suspend the rules to adopt Mr. Zollinger as the nominee and to replace Mr. Cobb, seconded by Mr. Gould. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Okay, so we welcome Mr. Zollinger to the St. Tammany Parish Development District. Under appointments, resolution to appoint Jerry Wiggins to replace Wes Wolsifer, who resigned to St. Tammany Parish Drainage District Number 5. And this is one of mine. I need a motion, please. Motion by Mr. Ortiz, seconded by Mr. Smith. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, one absent.
Thank you. Under discussion and other matters, we have one item, motion to refer to the zoning commission for recommendation on the proposed rezoning of 3.285 acres from A1 to A1 and MHO, Ward 2, District 6. Mr. Tanner. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Tanner to refer to the zoning commission, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Please vote. I need to reopen that off the floor. Yeah, just acted on one item.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion to open up items off the floor for item 5.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Gould, seconded by Mr. Belisario. Open items off the floor again. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, two absent.
Thank you. Item 5 is resolution to vacate in part the moratorium on property within portions of Beverly Hills and Kings Point subdivisions, Ward 8, District 14. Mr. Smith.
Move on this, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, motion by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Tanner. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, three absent.
Thank you. Any other items off the floor? Mr. Dean, Mr. Sharp, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Falconer, Mr. Gould? Was that a yes, Mr. Gould? Oh, he's not here, I'm sorry. Mr. Tanner? Motion adjourned by Mr. Tanner, that sounds good. Mr. Grovey, Mr. Belisario, Ms. O'Brien, Mr. Stefancic, Mr. Smith. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Tanner. So moved.
Thank you.